If you ever hear a woman crying near water, don't answer her. Don't go outside. Don't try to help. And whatever you do, don't answer back. In Mexico and across Latin America, people have whispered her name for generations. La Llorona, the weeping woman. Some say she's a warning. Some say she's a curse. Others say she's still looking. This story is based on one of the most enduring legends in Mexican folklore. There are many versions. Tonight, we'll explore the most haunting ones and the encounters people still report to this day. Long before cities, before highways, before electric lights, there was a woman named Maria. She was known for her beauty. She married a wealthy man. They had children. But over time, he changed. He became distant, ashamed of his roots, interested in someone else. One night, in a moment of heartbreak and rage, she did something she could never undo. Overcome by despair, she lost her dear children to the dangerous waters of the nearby river. The moment passed. Reality returned. She searched the riverbank, screaming, "My children! My children!" But they were gone. Grief consumed her. According to legend, she wandered the riverbanks until she died. And even in death, she kept searching. Nevertheless, that's only the version told to children. The older and hidden versions are much darker. In some accounts, she was not named Maria. She was not married. She was betrayed publicly. The act was not rage, right? It was ritual desperation. Some versions connect her to pre-Columbian omens. Before the fall of the Aztec Empire, people reported hearing a woman crying in the night, mourning her children, warning of something coming. Some historians believe La Llorona predates colonial times. She may have originally been either a goddess of mourning or a harbinger of collapse. Water in folklore represents memory, guilt, the unconscious, the boundary between worlds. La Llorona doesn't just haunt rivers. She haunts regret. The woman who shared this story never wanted her name mentioned. She lived on the 6th floor of an aging apartment building in Mexico City, the kind built in the 1970s. Long, narrow hallways, yellow lights that hum softly at night, pipes that rattle when someone showers 2 floors down. It was late August. Rainy season. The air always smelled faintly of wet concrete. That night, she woke up at exactly 3:02 a.m. She didn't know why at first. There was no loud noise, no thunder, no car alarm, just a sound that didn't belong. Crying. Soft, distant, almost swallowed by the wind. At first, she thought it was coming from the street below. Maybe someone arguing, maybe someone drunk. But this wasn't angry crying. It was broken. Long, trembling breaths between quiet sobs. She sat up in bed and listened carefully. The sound drifted upward. Slow, unrushed, like it had nowhere else to be. Her husband slept beside her, undisturbed. The crying grew clearer, not louder, just closer. She slipped out of bed and walked toward the balcony doors. The tiles felt cold under her feet. The curtains moved slightly in the night breeze. When she opened the sliding glass door, the sound became unmistakable. A woman, weeping, not screaming, not wailing dramatically, just grieving. The street below was empty. Streetlights flickered softly against the wet pavement. No movement, no figures, no cars passing. Yet the crying continued. It sounded like it was standing directly below her balcony now. She leaned forward carefully. "Ola?" she called out. The crying stopped instantly, not faded, stopped. Silence fell so suddenly it felt unnatural. She stood there waiting. Nothing. After a moment, she exhaled nervously and stepped back inside. She closed the door and locked it. As she turned away from the balcony, the crying resumed. But this time, it wasn't outside. It was inside the apartment, very faint from somewhere down the hallway. She froze. The sound was muffled now as if filtered through walls. It drifted slowly, almost thoughtfully, toward the children's bedroom. Her heart began to pound. She walked down the hallway carefully, each step feeling louder than it should have been. The crying grew softer the closer she got to the room, not fading, withdrawing, like it didn't want to be heard directly. She pushed the door open. The room was dark except for a small nightlight glowing near her daughter's bed. Both of her children were asleep, peaceful, still. The crying stopped again. She stood there for a long time. Nothing moved. No shadows shifted. No windows were open. Eventually, she convinced herself it had been the wind moving strangely through the building. Old pipes. Half-dream state. She returned to bed, but did not sleep. The next morning, as she made breakfast, her 6-year-old daughter looked unusually quiet. Finally, the girl asked a question in the calmest voice possible. "Mama, why was that lady crying in my room last night?" The mother felt her stomach drop. "Oh, what lady?" "The sad lady," her daughter replied. "The one in white." She described her simply. Long dress, wet hair, face covered, standing near the closet. "She kept saying she couldn't find them," the child said softly. "She asked if we were hers." The mother never heard crying in that apartment again, but she moved out 3 weeks later. She still doesn't open balconies at night. This one comes from 2 friends who were driving back from a late birthday party outside the city. It was close to 1:30 a.m. The road cut through a dry riverbed area on the outskirts of town, a place that used to flood heavily during the rainy season, but now sat cracked and empty most of the year. They weren't thinking about legends. They were laughing about something trivial. Music low. Windows down. As they rounded a bend in the road, the driver slowed suddenly. There was someone walking along the shoulder. A woman. Alone. Barefoot. Her white dress hung loosely around her frame, almost glowing under the headlights. Her head was tilted downward, hair falling forward and obscuring her face. She wasn't stumbling. She wasn't distressed. She was walking slowly, deliberately. The passenger leaned forward. "Is she okay?" The driver hesitated. It was unusual, but not impossible. Maybe someone from a nearby neighborhood. They rolled the car forward slightly. As they approached, the woman stopped walking. She lifted her head, but her face wasn't visible. Her hair remained draped forward unnaturally, even though there was wind. The air inside the car changed. The laughter disappeared. The driver felt something he couldn't explain, not fear, recognition. He had heard the stories growing up. He pressed the gas pedal gently. The car passed her. In the rearview mirror, the passenger kept watching. "She's not turning around," he said quietly. The driver nodded. They drove maybe 20 meters more. Then the passenger's voice changed. "She's gone." The road behind them was empty. No woman, no white dress, nothing. The driver swallowed hard. "Don't joke. I'm not joking." A thick silence filled the car. Then the passenger slowly looked forward again and stopped breathing. "She's in the back seat." The driver didn't look. He couldn't. The passenger's voice shook. "She's sitting right behind you." The car engine began to sputter. The headlights flickered. The driver's hands tightened around the wheel. He felt it. A presence. Cold. Close. He forced himself to glance in the rearview mirror. For just half a second, he saw white fabric, wet strands of hair, a shape leaning slightly forward. The engine died. Complete darkness. The silence outside was total. No insects, no wind. Then they heard it. Crying. From inside the car, soft, grieving, right between them. The driver turned the key again. Once, nothing. Twice, nothing. The crying grew slightly louder, not angry, not aggressive, just endless sorrow. On the third turn, the engine roared back to life. The headlights snapped on. The back seat was empty. The crying stopped. They drove the rest of the way without speaking. Neither of them ever drove that road again. Years later, when asked why they still believe it was her, the passenger answered simply, "She wasn't trying to hurt us. She was looking." There's something unsettling about stories like this, not because of what she did, not even because of what she is, but because she never stops searching. Most legends end. The monster is defeated. The curse is broken. The spirit moves on. La Llorona doesn't. She wanders, year after year, generation after generation. Rivers change course. Cities expand. Highways replace dirt roads. And still, people hear her crying. Maybe that's why the story survives. Not because it's terrifying, but because it feels unfinished. Think about it. Every version of her story begins with loss, but none of them end with resolution. She never finds her children. She never forgives herself. She never rests. And maybe that's what makes her different from other legends. She isn't hunting. She isn't chasing. She isn't seeking revenge. She's searching. And if you listen carefully to the encounters, she doesn't always appear angry. Sometimes she sounds confused. Sometimes she sounds desperate. Sometimes she sounds close, very close. Close enough that you might mistake her grief for someone who needs help. That's the most dangerous part, because human instinct tells us to respond to crying, to check on it, to comfort it, to answer it. And every story, every single one, carries the same warning. Don't answer her, not because she'll attack, not because she'll scream, but because the moment you respond, you've entered her story. And her story has no ending. Some people believe she appears near water because that's where it began. Others believe water is simply a boundary, a place between what was and what refuses to be forgotten. If that's true, then every river at night becomes something else. Not just water, but memory. And if memory can echo, so can regret, so can grief, so can a voice calling out into the dark. So tonight, if you hear someone crying outside your window, if the sound feels distant but too clear, if it moves without footsteps, ask yourself one question. Are you hearing her? Or is she hearing you? And whatever you decide, whatever instinct rises in you, do not call back, because somewhere in the dark, she's still searching, and she has all the time in the world.